It was the engine no one could pin down. Officially rated at 360 horsepower, but everyone knew that was a lie. The Buick 455 Stage 1 was a monster. A torque-heavy beast that left big block Chevys shaking. It wasn't a secret, but it was quietly downplayed, disguised behind corporate ratings and hidden under Buick's gentleman's car image. It earned a cult following. It outran legends. It crushed quarter miles. So why did GM try to bury it? Why did the most powerful engine of its time become a threat? Not to the competition, but to its own company. This is the shocking truth behind the banning of Buick's 455 Stage 1 powerhouse. Backstory. This beast was a piece of art, to say the least. It was designed for greatness. It was intended for glory. There were multiple factors that came into play and went on to craft the situation in which Buick would have to build a silent monster. The market conditions were competitive. The internal politics in GM were not very calm either, and the brand itself felt like it had a lot to prove. A cocktail situation led to the creation of this magnificent powerhouse. So, what were the actual motivations? Well, it's no secret that by the 60s and 70s, the automobile industry was going completely insane. The brands were competing in every aspect they possibly could. Power, luxury, image, you name it. In this market situation, the management of Buick, which was loyal to the brand, wanted the brand to shine brighter. They wanted the brand to reach new heights and acquire new markets. Buick had previously been known as an old man's car brand. The brand was making luxurious vehicles, cars that would perform well but wouldn't be anything for the fanatics to drool over. The management was aiming to change this image. They wanted to show the world that the brand was capable of much more than just comfortable vehicles. The people at Buick realized that they would need way more power to actually prove to the market what they were really capable of. But that wasn't it. The brand image was an important motivation. But it was also the market conditions that played a role. In this era, muscle cars were peaking. Everyone and their moms wanted a taste of the sweet, sweet American muscle cars. Buick's management took notice of this situation and decided to enter the muscle car race to compete with the biggest names in the game. But the internal politics within GM did not make for the ideal condition for Buick to flourish. The GM consisted of multiple well-known brands that were all participating in this brutal arms war. Many brands within GM were outdoing each other, and they all had their own muscle vehicles to represent them in the market. Buick not only had to stay relevant in the larger automobile market, but also inside GM. The brand could see that GM did not really want Buick to outshine Chevrolet or Pontiac. Buick was still willing to go against the odds and make a name for itself. So, what did Buick do? Well, the brand was not in any way oblivious to the fact that they would have to work smartly if they wanted their star machinery ever to see the light of day. Knowing this, the brand took a rather low-key approach to this arms war. The market was booming for performance beasts, and for an engine to be respected, it had to be truly monstrous. Monstrous and low-key didn't really go hand in hand, which is why the brand needed to work a lot harder than most brands would. The 455. The product that came out of all these efforts was the glorious 455. But the road to the final product hitting the markets was not as smooth as one might think. Well, the GM was not very supportive. The market conditions were already filled with exceptional beasts, and Buick had to keep their beast low-key. To not gain a lot of attention from the authorities, Buick kept the engine as sober as possible. This meant no flashy designs, no loud spoilers. But this did not mean that this engine was in any way not a total monster. While the market was hell-bent on bettering the horsepower their machines were producing, Buick went with a slightly different approach. Buick wanted an engine that would generate ungodly power, but their focus was more on the torque of the engine rather than the horsepower it would generate. The approach worked great for the brand as it made the vehicle perfect for real-world driving, in which torque was way more important than the amount of horsepower. The low-key approach also helped Buick stay safe from the high insurance surcharges, while other powerful cars with flashy designs that stood out still had to suffer. But not Buick. Their engine was insanely powerful, but not extra in any other way. The cars being produced were still in some ways aligned with Buick's older image, which represented sophistication and class. The 455 Stage 1 engine was just the 455 V8 engine, but in a package that was more. It was more powerful than the base engine, and this was due to the insane enhancements the brand did to the stock machine. The engine had a 455 cubic inches displacement, which gave the beast its well-respected name. But that is not all that it did. The large displacement was crucial for the heavy torque this piece of machinery would be generating. The block of this juggernaut was crafted out of cast iron. Cast iron was already a popular material for engine blocks. This popularity was due to the ruggedness of the material and its ability to hold up against insane amounts of pressure. The stroke was designed to be slightly shorter than the bore. This design, known as the undersquare design, promoted low-end torque and made the engine just perfect for streets and drag racing. The cylinder heads, like the block, were also made out of cast iron, and for the same reasons. The valve system was pretty decent as well. There were 2 valves for each cylinder, but the intake valves were larger than they were in the base version. This larger intake valve allowed for way better airflow, which helped this engine produce more power across all RPMs. The choice of camshaft on this beast was quite traditional. A hydraulic flat tappet type camshaft was used for this engine. The design was conventional, but it was known for its torquey capabilities, which made it the perfect choice for this torquey beast. The design gave the vehicles a smooth and calm idle, which was perfect considering the brand was going for a combination of powerful and sophisticated. The hydraulic lifters also needed way less maintenance than solid lifters. The durability of this engine may have been a little questionable. The bottom end of the engine was known to be strong, but not exactly overbuilt. Crankshaft and rods were cast, but they were not forged. The oil system was a wet sump design with moderate capacity. The cooling system was quite conventional on this thing, though a standard water pump and radiator were used. The downside. The 455 Stage 1 powerhouse was no doubt a beast, but it was not perfect. It was amazing for the people who loved the way Buick's Star Child functioned. But the world was still changing, and that too, rapidly. In 1970, Buick finally launched this masterpiece in a few variants for the market to adore the piece of art they had worked so hard to develop. The launch took place right after GM eased the regulations on the displacement size of the engines. The people were initially shocked by the insane performance of the engine. Given the brand's previous reputation, this engine was a delight and a fresh breath of air for many experts and fans. But soon after this engine hit the markets, tides began to shift. It seemed as if the golden age of American muscle cars was coming to an end. Insurance prices were beginning to rise, and people were starting to shift to safer and calmer cars, which would not cost them as much on insurance. As muscle cars began taking over the streets, many people were not fully loving the way people were driving these monsters. These vehicles were associated with reckless driving, and that resulted in a very significant backlash from multiple focus groups. Then came the Clean Air Act of 1970. This act imposed strict regulations on emissions, and once again, fingers were pointing towards the muscle vehicles. The brand countered these problems by dropping compression ratios, shifting to net horsepower ratings, which showed lower numbers, which may have helped for a while, but things were not looking very good. And then, in 1973, the automobile market took a big hit. As fuel prices broke through the charts, people began shifting from high-performance V8 vehicles to compact and convenient vehicles which would cost them way less in fuel. It was not possible for average people to maintain a fuel-gulping V8 monster anymore. Since the demand for these high-performance beasts started becoming lower and lower, so did the production of these juggernauts. The design of this engine was limited and could not be modified to easily fit the new regulations that were imposed on the manufacturers. Just a year after the big launch of the Beast, the production dropped significantly. But there was still some hope. In 1974, the Stage 1 package quietly and abruptly disappeared from the GS lineup, of which it was a part. This was the beginning of the end. In 1975, Buick discontinued the GS model as a whole, and the 455 iconic engine was retired soon after in 1976. Conclusion: the engine was not directly banned by one single authority. It was a gradual change of rules, regulations, and market conditions that led to the engine before being finally taken out. The 455 Stage 1 powerhouse was a statement, and a very strong one by Buick. It showed the world what the brand was really capable of, and this engine shaped how the brand would continue to excel in the future. The 455 Stage 1 was an absolute beast, and it impacted the Buick brand very significantly. The story of this juggernaut makes one wonder what would have happened if it were not taken out so brutally. For more stories like these, subscribe to our channel. Let us know your thoughts on this monster in the comments below. See you soon.